I tried to do another Theater of the Mundane, but I couldn't do it. It's a little bit too ridiculous. Maybe I'll do it some other time. But I tell you, if I get enough Theater of the Mundanes and enough people watch them that understand that I'm joking, I'll do this one. But I'm afraid somebody will come across and think I'm serious and I'll come off like a real jerk. Um, so I do want to talk about this though, because I think it's really interesting. And I mentioned the woman at the well, and the woman at the well was likely not welcome at the Samaritan temple. In fact, I highly doubt it. And so I'd mentioned that she was going to Jacob's well, and she went during the time of day that other people wouldn't be there, and because she probably wouldn't be welcome there either. But she knew a time she'd go alone, and there was Jesus waiting for her. And I think this is what Jesus means by the spiritually poor. The theology of Jesus' day, which I've mentioned in previous videos, so I'm going to keep this very brief, was if you were born with an ailment, you had it coming. If you were born poor, you had it coming. If you were rich, you were in a special place. So the spiritually poor were people. Well, and also this, in Romans, we learn that God's wrath is revealed from heaven. We see with the woman at the well, Jesus did not shy away from addressing her sin. And so the spiritually poor are people who are oppressed spiritually, I think, by many different sources. And as a result, couldn't find a way to be right with God. And when Jesus looked at her and said that he was going to offer her living water, it seems like she maybe took that too literally. Hard to tell from the text. Or maybe she was just being dense and was trying to get him to explain himself. But she said, well, give me this water so I don't have to keep getting water out of this well. And it probably was getting a pain to get water out of a well. I mean, you had to put, in the bucket, you had to put a stone because it might float. So you had to lower it, down in there. You didn't want the stone to fall out slowly. And then it was heavy as you pulled it back up. It was probably laborious to do this. So for Jesus to offer a removal of the burden, he wanted her to see that through the illustration of the water, of going to the well and going through the process. Then you got to carry the water buckets all the way back, So the idea of this burden being released, that is the spiritually poor. That Jesus says that that's who God is focused on. God is focused and is acutely attuned to those who want spiritual rejuvenation and don't see a way to get it. And Jesus offers himself. He offers himself as not just an answer, but a type of spiritual wealth. Michael Youssef put it this way, that God lavishes his grace on believers. And I like that illustration, that God is just, that may not even be entirely accurate. It may be just that God simply has you in a different category than those who are under his wrath, which makes you spiritually extraordinarily wealthy. You have the ultimate wealth spiritually. You have nothing that oppresses you, not even the law. I recently did a funeral, and it was really tough. I probably should have asked not to do it. It's just, the woman was a wonderful woman. And over the years, it's not like we spent a lot of time together, but after 10 years of ministering with this woman, you feel closer. And it was hard to see her go. One day I'll tell you the story about when I spoke to her when she was on her deathbed. It was, God did something amazing there. But this isn't the time. But someone had requested, they said, we're not interested at her funeral in soul saving. And I was like, I don't know where people get these ideas. Like, do they think that ministering is soul saving? That's it? Or I guess I don't partition soul saving from other aspects of ministry. Maybe she thought that I had a particular perspective or something like that and thought, I was going to go to the funeral to save souls, which, this woman should have known me better than that. But I'm not putting her down. I understand the concern. The concern was to have the funeral a certain way, which is fine. That's not an issue. Because again, the gospel gets out there regardless. So I wasn't worried about that. And the gospel was shared. And I didn't even do the whole funeral. I did part of it. But my point here is that Jesus offers all of himself, everything that he is, up to the one who is oppressed spiritually. There's no partitions. There's no soul saving here and ministering in this capacity here. He's offering all of himself up. We may not always see it. And that's really important. This is a part that's hard for evangelicals to wrap their minds around. Because Paul makes it very clear. If you don't preach the gospel message, how will they be saved, right? So you have to preach the gospel message. But the thing is this, read very closely in the scriptures. There are different aspects by which God approaches each person with the gospel. It's not always done one way. So there's confusion there sometimes. So the scriptures say God will give you the words. Don't worry about that. You'll have the right words. You have to have faith. That's going to happen if you're going to do any kind of ministry. Finally, one last story. I was asked to pray with a group of teachers before school started one fall. And so I met with them outside, and they wouldn't allow us to go on school. We weren't allowed to go inside the school. They allowed us to be on school property. It was a public school, so I thought that was fine. And I asked the teachers, I said, do any of you struggle with the fact that you may not be able to share the gospel in this context as a Christian? And several of them shook their heads like it bothered them. And I told them, I said, I don't think you should let it bother you. I don't. I think you should be a Christian teacher and always be in prayer that God is using you to reveal this gospel message. We don't always see it directly, right? But getting back to my main point here, those of us who have this spiritual wealth can easily share it with others in many different facets. And our expectation is that God will use that. All right, have a good one.